Hey, it's Saturday. I mean, not Saturday, it's Sunday. Hey, welcome to the Shaker Heights. Experiences may vary. I'm Gabe, and Eric is here. And we got another Sunday. We got another Red Raider, class of 84, known to many by his former name. I'm going to bring it to the stage. We're coming live from the Ashby Rapid Stop in our minds. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to bring my man, known to the world as Joe Solo.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see everyone.
Yes. Welcome, Joe Solo.
Thank you.
So, for those who are not up on you, who went to school, your former name was?
Doug Klein. Sure.
Doug Klein.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Klein. So, for all those who don't know, now you know.
It doesn't matter to me whether someone calls me Doug or Joe. I know who they're talking to either way. So,
yeah.
you know.
Okay.
How did you come up with the name?
Well, I didn't. A fellow classmate of ours from 84 named Dave Richmond.
Yes.
Who was a phenomenal drummer. Well,
yes.
Still is.
St. Vincent.
He and I were jamming in his basement. I was on guitar, and he was on drums. And we didn't have like a bass player to hold down the bottom end. We didn't have a keyboardist or another guitarist. So there's like no rhythm going on other than the drums. And I'm like soloing, right? And it's like, this is like without a bottom end or something to lock into. This is like hell for a drummer. So he's like, come on, man, lock in with me, play some rhythm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the hell with you, I want a solo. And I keep soloing. He gets mad and he throws his drumsticks at me. He goes upstairs and plops himself down on the couch. His mother goes, what's the matter with you? And he goes, Doug thinks he's Joe Solo. So that's how the name was born. And that night he took a screwdriver and scratched it into my guitar. In fact, I have it right here. It's still my number one guitar weapon of choice out of the many I have. But you can see the original scratch.
Whoa!
Right there.
He was pissed.
So, there we go.
Yeah.
So, when I went to music school in Los Angeles, and everybody's walking around with their guitars, everyone saw the name and started calling me Joe Solo, and it just caught on. I was like, well, if that's what I'm going to be known as, I should change it legally, make it official. Yeah. Otherwise you're just a punk. So, in '88. I went to my uncle, who's an attorney, and had it changed. And the funny thing is, my name, according to my mom, who feels she has to explain the whole story every time she introduces me to like one of her friends,
right?
Be like, "This is my son, Joe Solo, formerly Douglas Allen Klein, until December of 1988, when he changed his name legally because he's out in LA. He's a successful record producer." That's my name now when she introduces me like to her friends.
So extended. So so
might as well give the full intro. Might as well give it full intro, Gabe.
Yeah, man. I mean, so here we are. Recognized songwriter, record producer who developed the Grammy-artist Macy Gray.
Yeah.
Sold over 28 million units. You were the musical director for Michael Jackson. And you've had your music placed in hundreds of TV show, films, commercials, and video games.
Oh, yeah.
Other credits include Fergie, will.i.am, Quincy Jones, Universal, Sony, Apple, and many major record labels. Joe Solo owns his own studio in Marina Del Rey, California, and also works at the top outside studios all over the globe, and is the CEO of Joe Solo Music and Entertainment, and the founder of the Music Success Workshop. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, now you know. Recognize. I also want to take a quick aside. I want to shout out to the late Greg Kihn Band. That was a part of my musical lexicon, watching MTV back in the day, the Breakup Song and Jeopardy, who passed away earlier this week of condition related to Alzheimer's. So shout out to Greg Kent. He's also a guitar player, so that's what sparked to.
I saw him open up for somebody I went to see in the '80s, but I can't remember.
So was it Journey? I saw him
Probably
open for a
was.
Journey concert.
Was that the Escape tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably it. I knew I ran across it.
Wow,
Oh,
what a good memory.
oh yeah. So here's the thing. Being it the Little League World Series week, look what we got here. We got the Shaker Boys League,
Oh yeah.
which was our socialization before all of this internet junk, where we actually spoke to each other.
Pre-Facebook. Yep.
You can
Right.
find
Yeah.
that on our.
I was in Shaker Boys League for however, from the very first
I remember that.
time until the very last at bat as a senior.
Oh
Yes.
wow!
And I've got an interesting story where
Do tell.
we were winning. This was on the championship game. All right. It's the last inning. There's 2 outs. We're winning by 1 point.
What teams?
Ooh.
Who was on the team?
Well, Greg Young
Yes.
was on the team. Greg was one of my best friends in high school, and somehow every single year I would end up on his team. Now his dad was the
Yes.
coach, so I
Yes,
think there was
Mr.
some
Young.
inside baseball going on, to make sure that
Yes.
these 2 best friends were on the same team every year.
I remember that.
That was kind of cool. But anyway, so my last at bat, the last inning, there's 2 outs. I've got 2 strikes on me, and I hadn't even stepped into the batter's box, or like I'm just about to step in. I've got 1 foot raised, right, and the pitch comes right across the middle. But I didn't even step in the batter's box. I wasn't ready, and the umpire is like, strike 3.
Whoa!
And I was like, what? And I looked at the coach, Mr. Young, and he was just like, don't make a big deal because we're winning. All we have to do is get out of this last inning without letting them score, and we got the championships. And I was like, that's completely all right. So anyway, now, about 16 years later, I'm in line for a movie in a city called Century City.
Yeah.
It's like one of the, I think it was like a re-release of Star Wars or something like that. Anyway, there was a bunch of friends, and one of them calls out my name, and I hear this voice from behind me, right behind me. He goes, Joe Solo? And I turn around, and I don't recognize the guy.
Yeah.
And he gives me his name, which was Randy Salganic. He was also a Shaker, right?
Yes, that name sounds familiar.
And I told him the story I just told you because he didn't remember this at all. And I said to him, I just want you to know, now that it's so many years later, even though it was my last at bat for my entire baseball career with Shaker Boys League, I forgive you. We had a good laugh.
Yeah.
But,
that's funny. Closing the circle on that. Yeah, the loop.
Yeah.
So, okay. So when did you arrive to the Shaker community? Are you like Shaker, like several generations?
All the way, first grade.
Okay. Yeah. And you went to Onaway or Fernway?
Onaway.
Onaway. Okay.
Yeah.
And Woodbury. Besides Greg Young. Yeah. Besides Greg Young, who else did you hang out with?
Oh man, so many people. I never really stuck with one crowd. I kind of
floated around,
chameleoned around with different crowds.
Okay.
And Dave Richmond, we're very dear friends, and I haven't seen Greg in decades.
Yeah.
Dave is in New York. Every time I go to New York, which is fairly often, we get together.
Yeah.
And the last time I went, he was sitting in for a drummer that was sick in a band called Les Zeppelin. So it's a lesbian Zeppelin tribute band. So he shows up with a wig and everything like that, but then he takes his shirt off because he likes to play with his shirt off because he gets so hot, but he kept the wig on.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, it's years and years later, and Dave was phenomenal in high school, but now unbelievable, top world-class professional. I was just blown away. And
Yeah.
I'm jaded in music. It takes a lot to blow me away. So he was really good. This was just like a year ago.
I snuck into his house because he had soundproof walls in the basement.
Huh.
Do you remember those walls?
Well, that's why we're down there playing drums and guitar with that basement.
Yeah, I guess his mom agreed to build them, and I probably was with John Henry Johnson or someone, and
Oh, John Johnson. Good person.
so
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
Daryl Swan, he's out here. He's producing.
Yes.
He's doing it in music. And in fact, he ended up producing a song that I wrote called "Sweet Baby." It was a Macy Gray song,
Okay.
and it was doing well in the charts, the MTV video and the whole thing. But then 9/11 happened, and that shut the world down. No tour to back up the album. No appearances
Oh
on the radio
man.
shows. So the thing still went gold in like Europe, and she's got a big following in Asia. But in the States, it was it was kind of stillborn when the record came out because the
Oh
release
man.
date was 9/18/2001, a week
wow.
later. So be it. So
Yeah.
be it. But
Did you
that song was still my breakthrough into the music industry.
did you
Okay.
produce any of the work that she did with the Black Eyed Peas? Because I see that you have affiliation with Will.i.am and Fergie.
Yeah, well, Will.i.am produced another song I wrote called "Glad You're Here." That's on her record called "Big." And for Macy fans, that's a fan favorite. And
Okay.
personally, I was not happy with Will.i.am's production.
Mm.
The original version that I produced, we got this bass player named Billy Bass, who was the original bass player for Funkadelic.
Oh, okay.
And this guy came up with just like the most badass bass line that made the song. But then they didn't do the same bass line at all in the final version. So for me, it was like, oh, you killed the coolest part of the song.
Yeah. Wow.
So
And was
that
that
happens.
yeah. I mean, was that like a surprise, like when you went to like the mastering session, or to hear it, or how was that?
The first time I heard it like that, I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was pissed. Only and because I knew it could be so much better. And I know that because we did it much better before.
Right.
But a lot of times a producer will come in and want to put their own stamp on it, which is fine if it serves the song.
Yeah.
I myself, when I work with a client or an artist, I really don't have a single stamp that I put on that's mine so much as I look to create a signature sound for them and work together synergistically to come up with that sound. Because it's got to be something they believe in too. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Yeah.
What do you find yourself partial to, like when you're working with a client or an artist? Are you more of like a percussion person or guitar person?
I'm a producer, so I'm a everything that's involved person.
Okay.
I mean, every little piece of the puzzle matters.
Yeah.
Just imagine you're listening to a song on the radio, and then all of a sudden some wonky sound comes out, really loud volume out of nowhere. It would like pull you out of your space, even if it just lasted for like that long. It was so it has to be, every element just has to be undeniably great.
Yeah.
Every element, the vocals, the lyrics, every instrument behind, the tracking, the mixing, the mastering, every step of the way, it's got to be pro all the way.
So describe, your childhood with music. I mean, when did you get introduced to music growing up?
Good question. I think when I was about 5, we had a baby grand piano in the living room, still there, and someday it will become mine. Anyway, so my dad showed me how to make a major and a minor chord, and he broke it down real simple. He goes, pick any key, now count up 4 keys, and then count up 3 keys. Play those 3 notes. That's a major chord anywhere you do it on the piano. Oh, that was easy. Then he said, and if you count up 3 and then 4, that's a minor chord. So now you know every major and minor chord. So I started playing around with that and actually started writing songs. And by the time I was like 10, I was really proficient on piano. And it was around that time that I wanted to play guitar.
Okay.
So I was like listening to some Led Zeppelin in my bed. And all of a sudden I was just like, oh, I gotta rock. You know. So I went to my dad.
Sorry
Yeah.
to do that.
And this was got to rock. All right. So I went to my dad and told him I want to play guitar. He's all excited and everything like that because his dad and 11 aunts and uncles were all traveling vaudeville entertainers back in the day.
Wow.
So it's like carry on the family tradition of entertainment. Yeah. All right. So he gets me this really top quality classical guitar and signs me up for a year of lessons with Cleveland's best classical instructor, a guy named Dick Lurie, who lived in Heights. And I was like thinking, well, I really meant electric guitar and rock, not classical guitar and classical.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the heart to tell my dad. I was too afraid to tell him because he spent all this money on me and I felt bad, so I didn't say anything. But then after, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot that was definitely applicable later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot of music theory very young. I learned how to. I started guitar early, and eventually was able to play at world class levels. Thank you. All right, and so after about a year, I was like, Dad, I can't take it anymore. I meant rock. I want to play electric guitar. I want to rock out. I'm hating this. I admitted to him, I said, I hate it so much that every time Dick gives me an exercise to play 3 times a day, instead of playing it 3 times, I would play the first note 3 times, ba, 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 second note, ba, ba, ba. And I'd go through it once like that. So when my folks asked me, did you do your 3 exercises? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I figured this is just silly. So I talked to my dad. So that's when he went out and got me an electric guitar and a really nice amp and everything like that. But it was a very clean sound, and I wanted a distorted rock sound. So I spent $30 on a little effect pedal that gives you the distortion sound of a rock guitar. And it was like, man, I spent $500 on a great guitar, $500 on a great amp, $1,000 total to get you this nice pristine sound, and then you want to spend $30 and fuck it all up. So that was funny, but he was a big influence because for my graduation for high school, he said, I want to get you something. What do you want? And I said, I want to get a device that's called a delay. It makes echo sounds on the guitar. And the reason why is I want to be able to play some of these Pink Floyd songs that use this effect a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I want. So when the gift comes, it's not that, but instead it's a 4-track recorder.
Oh,
where you can record on separate tracks and mix it all together. And he's like, I think this will be better for your career. And that was the beginning of being a record producer, which I had never thought about. And then, through the years, this little portable studio got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I started buying more and more equipment and building out my studio and everything like that. And then, of course, when the computers came along, a lot of the stuff is in the computer now. And so you don't need a big, huge studio unless you're doing like drums or orchestral or a big horn section, things like that. So I'll actually work like right here. You can, it's a big mess, but you can sort of see. Wait, this has got me confused. There we go. Yeah, you can see some of the
Yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna get this. There we go. Okay, I just had to work it out in my brain. There's some of it.
Yeah.
There's the computer. There's the speakers. Whoops. Oh, this is kind of cool. Right here, if you look right here, these tapes right here are some of the actual Macy Gray masters from back in the day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, did you guys bond that a lot over being from Northeast Ohio? I mean, like, how did that connection come about?
Oh, okay. No, because well, not at first,
Okay.
because I met her out here at this diner called what's it called Larry Parker's Beverly Hills Diner,
Yes, I know that.
and this is in the '80s. And in the '80s, guitar players had longer hair and this kind of thing. It's pretty obvious I was a musician. And so I'm paying my bill, and she's the cash register. She's at the cash register, and she's like, "Hey, you look like a musician. Is that what you do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I produce and I play guitar and piano and blah blah blah." And I said, "But I don't sing." And she goes, "Oh, well, I'm a singer and I need a producer, so maybe we should work together."
Wow.
Okay, and I'm like, "Well, okay, the universe has plopped this opportunity in front of me. All right, sure, let's check it out. Let's come on down to my place and we'll mess around in the studio a little bit and just see what happens." So she comes over the next day and she's in the vocal booth. And at the time, vocal booth is actually euphemism for bathroom.
Yeah.
So she's singing, and after like 3 or 4 minutes, I get on the little talkback mic, and I'm like, "Could you come back out here? I want to talk to you for a second." She's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Right now, in this moment, I will commit, no matter how long it takes, to be your producer, your writing partner, your music director, your live band director, everything until we make it. And I'll never leave you or never give up." And it
Wow.
took 15 years, actually.
Wow. 15
Uh,
years with Macy Gray.
yeah,
Wow.
because I was just starting out too. I knew
Yeah.
what I was doing, but I knew there was a unique voice there and
Yeah.
talent. So I made the commitment in 3 minutes and stuck with it. And apparently, it worked out. It took a long time.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
if someone had told me, it's going to be that many years before you start seeing some action from all this, that might have been a hard pill to swallow. But
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
So
now it
you've
takes me
been
6 months to develop someone, not 15 years.
so of the top of the dome. I'm figuring you've been involved with two people that have had controversial experiences with our national anthem.
Who's the
Macy,
second one?
Fergie.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that one.
Oh yeah, Fergie. There, someone just sang the national anthem at the All-Star game.
Uh-huh.
Country singer,
Yes.
and she was on. I guess she was high or something, and they said
Ooh.
it was the worst since Fergie did it.
Huh. Huh.
Well, I would put Roseanne Barr up there too.
Yeah,
Oh
Roseanne.
yeah, I thought yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the track star, who was the sprinter, his voice cracked during the national anthem. What's his name? The guy that always won everything, and it'll come back in the show. Never mind.
It's all
Did
good.
you are you really close to her? I mean, did she share with you? You can keep it confidential, but did she talk about that moment, or do you even know that she had a controversial
Oh
national?
yeah, yeah. No, I know all about her career and many, many other things that no one will ever know. And we're like brother sister kind of
Oh, that's
relationship,
awesome. That's
which
awesome.
is which is to say we also argue like brother and sister when we're working
Oh
on
yeah.
music
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
One time we got in a fight so bad that she threw a chair at me, and I picked up a guitar and threw it at her. But right before I made that decision, I picked the cheapest piece of crap guitar I had that I didn't care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh.
fortunately, I missed her. And then about five, she storms out. The hell with you, Joe. And um, she's sitting down on the front steps of my apartment, and I just come back and I go, "Okay, it's time for us to work now." She goes, "Yeah."
So
Yeah.
let's rewind the tape.
Mhm.
When was the pivotal moment that you knew you were going to be nothing but a musician or a producer? And then I want to find out, when did you decide that production was your main thing?
Well, yeah, I wanted to be guitarist in a band. That was my main thing in high school and in the first couple of years I came out to LA. But I was, because that little 4 track and the other equipment I was getting a lot of experience as a producer. And I had a band out here, and the band was going nowhere.
Mhm.
But the producing and songwriting started taking off. So at a certain point, I was just like, well, I should probably go where the action is. I could be very satisfied, life satisfied, whether I'm in front of the scenes or behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you're producing, it's like being a director for a film. You're responsible for the entire
Yes.
process, everything,
100%.
every
100%.
aspect of it.
Can't that be frustrating? My favorite musician of all time is Todd Rundgren, who started as a producer.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the relationships knowing where you think the band should go and then pressing them to where they need to go and telling them what you think they should know. I mean, what is that like?
Producing is about 80% psychology.
Yeah.
It is. And well, a lot of times I'll use humor if I have to say something that might harm the ego, the delicate ego of the artist. Like they might bring me a song. Okay, well, what do you think? Should we do this one? And I'm like, well, it's perfect except for two things: the music and the lyrics. So that's like my way of saying, I'm not feeling this one, or I just might come out and just say it like that, But the key thing is the word you said, relationships.
Yeah.
They've got to trust you. They're putting their musical soul into your hands to make it larger than life, professional, and make them sound like an effing star coming out of the speakers. That's really the goal.
Yeah.
Have you ever been wrong?
All the time.
Are there any
Who
hits
hasn't
that
been wrong? The first thing I say to the artist is like, look, I have all these credits and this whole history, but that doesn't mean you got to walk on eggshells around me. If you don't like something I come up with, just say so. And I said, look, I can't be expected to come up with all the great ideas. So it's a synergistic process the way I do it. It's not dictatorial, unless that's what they want. Sometimes they'll get a singer who comes in who can't write, can't play an instrument, but man, can she sing? This would be someone like a Celine Dion who doesn't write her own songs. She doesn't play anything, but as a vocalist, blows people away.
Right.
In a situation like that, a lot of times the artist will say, I just want you to develop my signature sound, and you're in charge. You do the whole thing. I'll just do whatever you say. And I'm not crazy about that because, like I said, I can't be expected to come up with every great idea.
Right.
But of course, as a pro, I'll put that hat on and do it, and it will come out good. I'm positive. But it's always better when you're working in synergy with the artist.
Right. Yep. Yep.
They have ideas, I have ideas, and they make little baby ideas that are better than anything we would have thought of alone. So yeah.
So like during this process, beyond Macy, and you're there and like going in from the late '80s to the '90s, you're in LA, and
Right.
the city of dreams and stuff like that. Did you ever feel the peaks and valleys of pursuing your musical dream?
Oh yeah, I was just describing somebody what it's like to be in the music industry, and I said, just imagine like a roller coaster. It's just that's just so wild and then mellow, then so wild and then mellow.
Yeah,
It's there's ups and downs. There's years where I've made it like a tremendous amount of money, and there's years where I didn't make anything, not a dime, and that happens. So it kind of evens out in the long run. But like when Macy broke through, I signed what's called a publishing deal.
Yes,
Which is like publishing is just like stock in the intellectual property of a song.
That's where the money's at.
Oh, yeah.
That is where the money's at. And I got a $500,000 advance, and people are like, "Oh my God, wow!" And I'm like, "Well, it was based mostly on the song "Sweet Baby" because it was going to be a single. Macy had already proven herself as a viable artist, so people are like, "Wow, that's so much money!" And I'm like, "Well, if you look at it from the time we spent writing the song and recording it, just as a demo, which was the song and demo that got her signed to the record deal, we spent maybe 6 hours writing it and doing a demo. Very, very little time. Just kind of came out naturally. And so, you know, making $500,000 for 6 hours work, not bad. But the reality is that I put in 2 decades of unpaid work prior
Yeah,
to get to that point. So when I divide that out, I think I'm doing maybe a little bit better than a McDonald's French fry cook after taxes.
yes,
But so that's how that goes. And then since
yeah,
then, you know, I built the career with this ups and downs all the time.
yep, yeah.
What has been, other than the size of your studio and the amount of equipment that you need, what technologically has impacted your career, or what genre has impacted your career in a good or bad way?
Oh, I got a great answer for that. All right. You know, EDM, electronic dance music, has become very popular, and hip hop's the most popular music in the world. As a producer, I'm always trying to push the envelopes, the stylistic envelope, forward a little bit. And so I came up with this unique sound called cinematic EDM. And it's more for film and TV. It's got like the cool sonics of electronic music, but it's much more melodic and orchestrated and emotional. And it's kind of a newer thing. And then same thing with like a lot of hip hop tracks I'm working on. Will be like a lot of hip hop beats and basses, but then the sounds that we have in and out of the vocals have these cool electronic whizaroos and things like that. Yeah.
Are you familiar with industry rule 4080?
Yes. No. I only go up to 4079 and then I forget the rest.
Well, you know, I'm name checking Tribe Called Quest. Industry rule 4080 record companies are shady. Yeah. How has it been for you navigating the majors?
Well, okay. You got your people in the industry who are authentic. Those are the ones who last. Reputation is everything.
Yeah.
You know, you talk to any of my producer buddies. What do you got? My reputation, and that's it. Without that, you're dead. And it is a very small business. Everyone knows everyone, or knows someone who knows everyone. So word gets around really fast, both good and bad. So you have to act with character. And at the record labels, there are people who do so, and they last and they build trust. And then there's others. They tend to be younger people who are trying to prove themselves to the label. So like they might give me a call and say, I want you to come in for a meeting, blah, blah, blah. And it may not be that they actually want to meet with me so much as they want to be able to tell their bosses, oh, I met with Joe Solo today. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's a waste of my time. So before we take a meeting, I'm like, well, what are we discussing? You know, is this going to be actual business, or are we just going to shoot the shit? You know, in which case, fine, let's go to lunch. But you know, so you have to watch out for that level of BS. But at the higher levels, people are authentic, and yes, labels have a reputation for ripping people off, but they invest a ton of money and resources, and the thing is that out of your royalties, you have to pay that back.
Right.
Before you start seeing any actual money. Now you'll get a small advance to live on when you're making the record. But so let's say you spend $1 million making a record, and let's say you get 9% of the profit. That's at the wholesale price. And when I say record, I mean stream record.
Right. Yeah, it's a whole new game now. Yeah.
And so when you get 9% of the wholesale price, you have to sell a lot of records before you pay back that advance and then start going into profit mode. But what happens is that, okay, so you sell a ton of records and maybe you break even, right? So they give you another advance and it's bigger. You got to make a follow-up record and you're already $1 million in the hole. Or maybe you're just even and you start over again and you're $1 million. You're going to be $2 million in the hole because now they're going to add a bunch of videos and make a bigger production, more marketing.
And we haven't even
So-
talked about touring yet.
Yeah, and touring is where you make your money, and where you make your secret money is actually corporate gigs. So like,
Yeah.
I'll just use Maisie as another example since I'm so intimately knowledgeable about her process. When she tours around, they'll book these corporate gigs in the same cities that they're doing an actual show.
Mm.
Okay, these corporate gigs, they pay $200,000 for an hour set a night. So she'll shell out $25,000 to the crew, 25,000 bucks for the gear and all that, and then keep 150,000 bucks. That's for an hour of
Man.
performing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're already in that city, so that there's no extra cost of transportation there.
Right. Right.
And that's where you make your secret money on tour.
Yeah.
But then also there's a thing called 360 deals with
Yes.
record companies, which is just a fancy way of saying we want to take a royalty on everything you do in music,
Right.
your
Like lock
merchandise,
you
your
up.
tour, not just the record. And those, depending on the size of the advance and the commitment of the label, those may or may not be worth doing. They could be
Yeah. I've heard
crushing,
a lot of mixed about 360 deals.
Yeah, so that's a little slimy to want to like participate in every aspect, of your business, of the business side of music, even the aspects that they're not involved in.
Yeah. No, and you being like the experienced producer and stuff and working with these artists, do you kind of give them like a primer on navigating the business? It's just like I think about like any of the professional sports leagues, they'll have these like conferences with their with the athletes about about the business. Now whether or
Sure,
not they
sure.
embrace it or not, it's a whole
Well,
different issue.
I do a lot of coaching and consultation,
Yeah.
both for individual artists as well as large corporations,
Yeah.
and so the they'll always have there's always a certain amount of customization that has to be done for each deal.
Yeah.
And if they want me to spend time teaching them about the industry, okay, then we'll do some consultations. But that's not really part of my job as a producer is to teach them about the industry. My
Hmm.
job is to make the reasonably best record possible that could be both an artistic and commercial success. And hitting both those targets is a challenge.
Yeah.
That's tough because for a record to be successful, millions of people you'll never meet who make their decisions on whether they like music or not in their subconscious, so it's just automatic, right? So
Yeah.
the subconscious thoughts of millions of people you'll never meet are basically in control of whether or not you're successful. So once the record's done and you put it out into the universe, you gotta let go.
Yeah.
Yeah, let it have its life, whatever
So
that life
you
will be.
must so you still write music, so that
Sure.
puts you at a different level, and it puts you at an advantage. It's I guess I would look at it as it's another monetary bucket that you
Yeah,
have.
it's another revenue stream. It's a good one, but also it's more valuable as a producer if I could write songs as well. A lot of people come in and they've got a verse and a chorus that's great, and then the bridge sucks, and they need the bridge written. Or maybe they come in with just lyrics and they don't have any music, and I have to have to write all the music to go underneath it.
Hmm.
So that happens, and then sometimes, like this is especially true with bands, their songs are pretty much fleshed out and written, and they don't really need typically an outside writer. Um, but if I have ideas or suggestions, I'll throw everything I have into the mix, and then if I get involved in the writing, in terms of splitting the publishing and the ownership of the songs, we'll just sit down and have a chat, come up with something that's fair.
Yeah.
If I'm writing a song from scratch, collaborating with someone, just we split everything even.
Mhm.
before we even start. That way, we
Yeah.
just make the best song possible instead of afterwards arguing over. Well, I wrote this noun and you wrote that verb, and I wrote this line and you wrote this line. Well, I came up with this melody. Well, you did this beat. Well, that's not part of the song. It's just a beat. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
split
there's
everything even, Steven, and everyone wins.
and
Yeah.
then yeah, there's stipulations on if it was written on the piano or if it was written on a guitar. There's stipulations with that I've heard.
That's more like the legal side and copyright.
Yeah.
Uh, typically, typically, it's the chord progression and the melody on top and the lyrics that is what's really protected by the copyright, not the production, not the beat. Except in a lot of modern music, especially hip hop and EDM, the production is the writing of the song.
Right.
You know, so that line has been blurred a lot.
Yeah, especially when Gabe and I are both music heads. For hip hop, I was watching this short on Instagram, and it was showing a lot of the jazz songs. The songs were slowed up or looped, slowed up, or sped up,
Uh-huh.
and none of us would even be able to tell what that song was before it was created for,
Yeah, that's a newer trend, slowing things down and giving it a different vibe. And
Do
I think
people
it's
get
kind of
away
cool.
with that? I mean, for the
Yeah,
most part,
if
or
people like the way it sounds, I think it's cool.
I mean,
Um,
do they have to pay? Do they try to do that so that they don't have to pay a royalty to the artist? Because we all know
no,
that Sting is making like $5,000 a week for Diddy's
But
version, a tribute to Biggie. So I'm just wondering how
was
that.
he using actual samples of his music?
Well, yeah, he used actual
That's
samples. So yeah,
that's why you
that
have to
was
get permission
identifiable.
and you have to
Yeah.
license out each sample. In fact, unlicensed samples they wreak so much havoc that a lot of times when you sign a deal, in the deal it says you may not use any unlicensed samples. I mean, they'll say that for sure, and in many cases it'll say other than samples that you create yourself or that you get from a sample library, which comes from a license, comes with a
Right.
license. Uh, Samples aren't even allowed because they want to avoid litigation like that. You
Well,
know,
that's why it took so long for 3 Feet High and Rising to finally make it
right?
back, because they never cleared all those samples until I don't know
Yeah,
what happened legally.
I mean, it also created the whole sample industry for the legal side. I mean, you got sample lawyers. That's all they do is clear samples. And
yeah. And, in any industry, technology changes everything,
yeah.
and the laws have to eventually catch up to that.
How
And
do you feel? How do you feel about that? Has it done it for the? What has it done to the art? Do you think it's what the word I'm trying to look for? Has it diluted the art, or has it added to? How do you feel in general about that, and especially with Apple? You know, in selling units, it doesn't equate the same way that it did when you actually sold albums. How do you feel about all of that?
pardon my brain, but I didn't understand the question at all.
Okay, with technology, okay, we've had things that have happened, okay, with sampling and in hip hop where people aren't playing the instruments, but they're
Right,
sampling other artists. Then you have what Steve Jobs did with the music industry and how music is sold. You're
right.
basically renting music, and
Yeah.
you're not selling units. You can't really track units like you used to do with albums.
Well, no, with downloads and streams, it's all tracked. Um, and you get paid. There's different kinds of royalty streams. You get paid every time something is played in a commercial environment, whether it's on Spotify or you're hearing a song in the background of a restaurant. Uh,
Yeah.
any commercial use of the music generates royalties.
Is trackable as an album sale or a tape sale? I
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
think
mean,
that it would be.
every radio station, for example, has to keep a log of what they play and turn
Hmm.
it in. But also, there's a thing called a blanket license because that could be a pain in the butt to have to track every single music piece of music that plays. Like if you own a restaurant, right? You're not going to hire somebody to sit there and jot down, what music they decided to play that day. So you get what's called a blanket license, which is a more expensive license that covers all the artists.
Yeah.
And then those fees are distributed through some formula that nobody knows. It's secret, like the recipe for KFC or the secret formula that makes Coke.
Yeah.
The soda.
ASCAP, BMI, blanket license. Because I would see those stickers outside of like certain restaurants or clubs.
Exactly. That shows that they're paying their royalties. The BMI and ASCAP and CSAC are the three. They're called PROs, Performance Rights Organization.
Who do you roll with? Who do you roll with?
I'm an ASCAPper.
Okay.
I've been ASCAP.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of speaking, and I speak at the ASCAP convention.
Okay.
Every other year or so.
How do you feel about the overall talent nowadays? For instance, you hear a lot of people taking music and writing new songs over it, or because it's been democratized, you can basically do an album on your computer. So do you think?
Yeah, but unless you really know how to produce and engineer, that doesn't mean it's a good album. And that's the thing, that just because you can create something at home doesn't mean you got the tools up here to create it. It takes years to develop.
But do you think the audience? Do you think the audience appreciates that, because there's such a volume of music out there, because anyone can get out what they don't have to depend on?
Different people care about sound quality, but like for example, anything on the radio is going to be professionally, produced. You're never going to hear a demo on the radio. You're never going to hear a demo quality recording in a movie or a TV show. The first thing they listen to in deciding to use music for film and TV is it broadcast quality? Mm-hmm. If not, it's unusable no matter how good the music is, unless they're going to use it as like background music. Like I had a song that was used as background music in a laundromat scene, and the music, there was like a little jam box there, and music is coming out, and it's tinny and tiny, it's in the background. It was a song I wrote, and so in a situation like that, well, the sound quality really doesn't matter all that much.
Right, yeah.
But other than something like that, it's got to be broadcast quality.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, what are some of the studios you like working in, like Record Plant, Electric Lady?
Oh man, Record Plant just closed down last week. I couldn't believe it, because I did a lot of work there. And
sorry to hear that.
Well, that happens.
Yeah.
But you can make a record at home now, so the big studios have some problems business-wise.
Yeah.
There's a studio called West LA Studios I'm real fond of. A lot of people record there, like Pink Floyd have been there, and Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins. And Smashing Pumpkins, the bands. I mean, I could rattle off 100 bands you've heard of them record there.
Yeah.
That's West LA Studios. And I mean, it's a couple. There's like 3 or 4 others around LA. My favorite one closed down recently, and I just actually talked to the owner this morning. He called me out of the blue just to see how I was doing, and he shut his studio down and moved to Nashville, because there's a huge music industry in Nashville as well.
Yeah.
But the cost of living is a lot less than Los Angeles.
Yeah. But it's going up, though. It's going up because everybody's.
I hear the housing is not as cheap as it was.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens over the next few years in terms of housing.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of. There was a class I took in Shaker. It was an advanced placement music theory class.
Oh, okay.
And because I had learned all my theory as a youngster playing classical guitar, it was so boring to me that it was the only class I ever actually cut. Which is kind of ironic, I'm cutting music. The music course is the only thing I ever cut, but it was it was really boring. And I guess the teacher calls my parents, and they're like, "What's going on with Doug? Is he okay?" Well, yeah, he's fine. Why? 'Cause I haven't seen him in class for 3 weeks. And my folks are like, "What are you doing? You've never cut class before." And I'm just like, "It's so boring. I can't take it." You
Yeah.
know, and I'm like totally ADHD, so like to sit still and be bored for an hour every single day.
Yeah.
I couldn't take it. And once again, my dad's like, "You know what? You're going to learn a lot of stuff that later on you're going to be glad you learned it. You know, and even though you learned it all as a kid, there's nothing wrong with reinforcing it, and you'll definitely learn other things that weren't covered as a kid."
Right.
So
Right.
I was like,
So,
"All right, Dad, you're right. I'll go back."
so can you actually write music, or did the ADHD prevent you? Because a
No,
lot of
because
performers can't.
ADHD people can laser focus if they're interested in something.
Yeah, that's true.
Laser focus. It's a
Yeah.
superpower. And it's a double-edged sword. It's a superpower, but then like doing errands around the house, I can't prioritize anything. So I just jump from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's weird, but like when I'm mixing and I'm looking at these, listening to these speakers, and there's 200 different sound sources going on. You got to balance everything out, fit it all together like a puzzle. You have to be able to hyper focus, especially your ears, on what's going on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just not going to turn out well. Yeah.
What do you attribute all of this musicality in that part of Ohio, or have
Oh,
you have you seen anything like it? I mean, it's not an arts high school, but it seems like it is.
Ohio is like a bedrock of music talent all over it. I don't
Yeah.
know why so much music talent has come out of Ohio and Cleveland and Shaker. Like for example, Gerald Levert did very
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
and uh, it didn't hurt that his dad was the leader of the OJ's.
Well, of course not.
Um,
Yeah.
but and then Jim Brickman. Have you ever heard of him? He's a Shakerite.
Is he related to Andy Brickman?
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually met Andy during a trip to Cleveland about a year ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's kind of
Yeah.
trippy. And but Jim Brickman, he plays this romantic piano kind of thing, and he's got a huge following, and he even does cruises, Jim Brickman cruises, where people can talk. He
Oh.
performs, and people can talk with him and eat dinner with him. Those kinds of music cruises has become like a newer form of revenue for artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm buddies with the guitarist of Night Ranger, Brad Gillis. They
Okay.
do these cruises all the time and make bank still.
Man.
And
Is it? I mean, for anyone like you to break in and be as successful as you are in the music business is, I mean, I'm sure you think it took dedication, but that's a feat within itself, isn't it? What you've achieved. It's not an easy thing to do.
I'd say you got a greater chance of success buying lottery tickets or going to Vegas and playing the slots. You have to have a life commitment, and there's no guarantee of anything.
Yeah.
But you have to commit to never quit, ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is to say, you can't take pauses when you're not in your groove. Might as well not force it, but you got to come
Yeah.
back to it quickly.
And do you have any mentors in the field? I know your association with Macy Gray pretty much helped your career and further your career.
Well, I've kind of been the mentor for the last several years, but I, I don't know if I have any mentors now, but
I mean,
coming
in the
up,
beginning, what
yeah,
coming up?
coming up, I
Yeah.
had many, uh, both on the business side as well as the artistic side, the producing side, performing, writing, everything.
Mhm.
But
Production wise, who did you look up to, or who took you beneath their wing?
the only person who took me underneath their wing was this. He was actually an engineer more than a producer, so he was focused more on dialing in the sounds instead of actually working with the musicians. But uh, I was maybe like 20, and I wanted to step up my career. So I walked around to different LA recording studios and just offered myself as a free assistant or intern, what have you.
Mhm.
And one door I knocked on, the guy was like, "I've been looking for someone like that, so yeah, let's try it out." And I had knocked on well over 20 or 30 studio doors before getting a yes. So that's where your perseverance and the
Yeah.
maybe to never quit comes in.
Real talk.
And at the same time, you don't want to keep beating a dead horse. So you still have to navigate things, recognize the opportunities that you never dreamed would happen that fall in your lap. You're like, oh, that's not what I'm all about. But wait a second. What if I look at this as an opportunity? I can expand what I'm all about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like,
we can equate that to when we spoke with John Denny when he graduated from Berkeley, and he was in Cleveland trying to find his way, and he ran into Michael Chapman, who was doing some production work.
Yeah.
And that's who he considers his mentor. So that's why I was asking you that question.
Interesting.
I think about like producers like like you had Butch Vig, Rod Templeman. Would he be considered a producer?
Ted
Templeman. Yeah.
Van Halen, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say like producers that really influenced me, believe it or not, George Martin of the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because if you listen to the arrangements and how everything fits together, really nice. Like if you listen to "Here Comes the Sun," every single section of the song is produced differently, yet somehow all coheres and makes sense through the journey of the song.
Mm-hmm.
And music is an interesting art because it's temporal.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a piece of art on the wall, you look at it and instantly you get what it's about. You can see the whole thing, but you can't experience the whole song instantly. You gotta invest your 3 or 4 minutes of time into it.
Right.
And so there is definitely an art to maintaining listener interest throughout the song.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be tough because people don't buy songs per song. They don't buy albums per se anymore. They don't sit down and look at the artwork and close their eyes and listen to it and bring their friends
Those
over.
days are over. Those days are way over.
Yeah.
But technology is always changing, in music especially. And if you notice, as accessing music becomes more convenient, the sound quality goes down.
Yes, of course.
So like if you listen to Spotify where you can get everything under the world, but to me, everything on Spotify sounds like crap. Because they compress the sound, they compress the signal, they squeeze all the dynamics out of the music. So to my ears, I can't even listen to Spotify.
That's what I was getting to, the quality. Does your audience even recognize it? And things are led by cultish type of things. Like, for instance, I'm not going to put her down. I'm not going to say anything bad. She's a great businesswoman and she's very talented. But it seems like there should be more to that person's music. I won't mention it because you might be involved with that person, but I'm seeing a lot of that. There's more of a cultish following based on the looks and everything else.
The whole package matters. The whole package.
Yeah.
And that is to say you have to have some kind of wild look. Remember Huey Lewis and the News? Those guys just dressed like they were going to college or whatever. And so they had sort of like their image was the band that had a non-image.
Mm-hmm.
But if they had put on all kinds of glitzy, sequiny kind of Vegas-y outfits, it wouldn't make sense with the music at all. Just like if you went to a lawyer's office and he was wearing orange cowboy boots, you probably wouldn't hire him regardless of how good his legal accolades are.
All about the shoes, man. It's all about the shoes.
I don't know, the orange cowboy boots with the pants tucked in. It's just not, I don't know. Well, I can't get past that to see if you're a good legal representative.
Well, I think about acts like Lady Gaga, her wearing the meat suits and everything, and her voice could carry her talent without all of those distractions, without any of that.
I'm buddies with one of her best friends, and lot of times with something outrageous like that, obviously it's planned.
Hmm.
You know, Lady Gaga did wear meat suits as a small child, and it was just her thing. You know, that was an image that was created. And yes, her musicality and her voice can carry her by herself. Um, you know, I myself was not into the meat suit uh, because it looked like all the meat was really rare. I'm more of a medium rare kind
Yeah.
of guy.
So, did you ever play Guitar Hero?
One time, it's so unlike guitar, actual guitar. I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I tried,
Yeah. Okay.
but
Yeah, I
you
was
know,
just curious. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was a great idea. There's no
Yeah.
doubt, but
Yeah.
it's so not like playing guitar. You know, it's more
So,
about timing.
right. Timing. Yeah. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, you're trying to hit all these chords and stuff like that. So I was curious, you being a guitar player and stuff.
Right.
Um, Here's another thing. Like, you worked with Michael Jackson, right?
Uh-huh.
So, did he ever talk to you in his real voice? You
Well,
know,
yeah, he only has a real voice, one voice. He only has one voice.
but no, but
No, that's
no,
not what we're hearing. You know.
Oh,
yeah.
well, maybe I'm not in the know. Maybe I'm ignorant. What's going on?
Well, just the fact that like there was that falsetto type voice, but then there was like the real Michael Jackson voice that was
Are you talking about a
lower.
singing voice? I was thinking speaking voice. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the
That's what
speaking
we're
voice.
talking. They say that that's
Oh,
not his real speaking voice. He tried
Yeah,
to
it
stay
sure
at
sounds like it to me. But um, I did interface with Michael a whole lot. What I was the musical director for his 45th birthday extravaganza at his Neverland Ranch.
oh wow,
And
okay.
oh, I got a whole handful of wild stories from there.
Oh, please do.
But
Bubbles,
let's just tell you
bubbles,
one. Yeah, but
bubbles. Hmm.
yeah, I didn't meet Bubbles.
Oh, okay.
But Michael's got a zoo, and it's a big zoo. It's got elephants and giraffes and lions. It even
Yeah.
has a serpentarium, which
Oh,
had snakes and tarantulas and scorpions. And I remember this. He had the Guinness Book World Record largest albino anaconda in North America.
what?
So,
We're not talking about his reproductive part. We're talking about a real
no,
animal, right?
we're talking
Okay.
about the actual animal, right?
All right.
And that's interesting. But anyway, so I'm at his zoo, and my back's up against this fence, and I'm talking to a bunch of people, just chit chatting, and all of a sudden I feel this like slimy wet sensation on my neck. And I turn around, and Michael's llama had come up to the fence and licked me on the neck. Now,
Oh,
if you had told me when I woke up that morning, before the end of the day, you're going to get licked on the neck by Michael Jackson's llama, I would have said 100% not going to happen. Can't
yeah,
happen. And I
yeah.
would have been wrong. I would have been wrong.
Oh,
So that was
man.
Hey,
interesting.
hey, we talked to Denny Young, and he's a promoter in Cleveland. He used to work for IMG. Do you know Denny?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so he,
he played. Wait, he played on a lot of those teams in Shaker Boys League with me,
of
Yes,
course, yeah,
yeah.
and then
yeah.
we actually spoke maybe a couple of weeks ago. Just need a little information.
So
Okay.
did you ever meet any of your heroes did you ever
Oh,
come
I
in
got a great
contact?
story. When I was 16, I used to be really into the Cars,
Yeah.
and I used to walk around with my portable radio playing my best friend's girlfriend. Uh, when I bought a house in a city called Bell Canyon, which is sort of like this a little bit more equestrian community, gated equestrian community. A lot of celebrities live there. Uh, and one of them was Elliot Easton, the guitarist for the Cars. He turned out
Mhm.
to be my neighbor. And we met like
Wow.
at a community function and we became buddies. So one night I was doing a recording and I needed a certain sound, but I didn't have the right guitar for it. But I knew he did. He's got a collection of over 200 guitars. It's sick.
Wow.
So I called him up and I said, "Listen, I need the sound of a semi-acoustic guitar, and I don't own one of those. Can I borrow one from you?" He's like, "Well, I'd lend you one, but I play left-handed, so all the strings are upside down to a normal right-handed player."
Jimmy
So,
style.
yeah, Jimi style. I could play that to save my life. So he said, "Since you probably won't be able to play it, I'm going to have to come over and learn the parts and play them for you." And I was like, "Hell yeah! I got the guitars from the Cars coming over to play." I mean, and I told him, "This is wild. You're my neighbor, and I grew up listening to you."
Yeah.
So
Wow.
small world thing. And
I got to show you. I got to show you something.
Oh yeah, Rick Ocasek.
Yeah, I ran
There you
into
go.
him. His kids go to. You used to attend the University of Rochester, and I was in Target, and I looked, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he took a picture with me, and Paula
cool.
Poroskova was walking around and stuff like that. It was cool. But anyway,
Awesome.
yeah, I had to bring that up. I'm sorry,
Well, we didn't know Rick shops at Target, but now we do.
I've also run into Eric Carmen. Well,
Uh-huh.
rest in peace. He was at the Apple store in
Cool.
Beechwood, the Legacy Mall, and I said, I keep seeing him here. I'm just going to approach him. And then I walked towards him, and he ran away from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he really did.
Well, that's too bad. I guess some people are accessible. Some, like personally, I mean, a lot of artists really enjoy that. Musicians, artists, they live for compliments on their music. Nothing motivates an artist more than a compliment on the music, or somebody saying like, "Your song means something to me," or "Your song helped me win my wife back when she was leaving me," or "Get me through your music got me through a really hard time in my life."
Right. You got any Prince stories? You have had?
Yes. Of course.
I got to hear one of those. Come on now.
So I first moved to LA, and I'm at this rehearsal studio where they have all size rooms, and they even have concert-sized stages to rehearse in for acts like Prince to rehearse their live show. So I'm at this place, and I heard Prince was rehearsing there, and coming back from the restroom, here he is walking up in the hallway by himself towards me. So I'm like, "Oh, Prince! Prince is a producer hero of mine, by the way. He's a great producer."
Oh yeah.
All right. And I said, "You're one of my production heroes." And he's like, "Thank you." Shakes my hand, and then he starts to walk on. I go, "And one more thing." And he stops like, "Oh God, what?" I bring it up. He turns around. And he goes, "What?" And I'm like, "I want you to remember my name because I'm going to be famous in music one day."
Wow.
And he goes, "Okay, we're playing along. What is it?" And I go, with all the gusto I could muster, "Joe Solo." And he goes, "Joe Solo." And walks away laughing.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
That's my brush. That's my brush with Prince. And then also I did a Prince. I was hired to do a tribute record to Prince in the style of like kiddie toy instrumentals with this label called Rockabye Records that does these kiddie sounding tribute records with music that their parents would listen to. So if they don't want to listen to Barney hours in a row, they could put on like some Beatles or Pink Floyd, but it's all little trickly little
elevator
spiels, little pianos and stuff like that. So I did the Prince tribute record for this record too.
And he agreed to that, or was he?
The way it works is that as long as they pay the royalties for it, he has no choice as long as he's paid properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got to ask this. So who are your favorite old bands and modern bands today?
Old ones like original Van Halen, definitely. There was a whole contingent of people at Shaker who
exactly.
We bought our Van Halen tickets and we're playing Hot for Teacher on the tables in the cafeteria, and Steve Smith and others.
John Miller.
A lot of people went there to that concert. So Van Halen, Journey, I really liked growing up. And
so who would you pay top dollar to see nowadays? If you only had one concert to see, who would you go see?
Yeah. See, I'm a little jaded. The magic of music isn't quite so magical for me in terms
Yes,
of watching. I mean, I know how it's all put together, and it's not like it's like it's like if David Copperfield went to go see another magician's show, he's going to view it from a different perspective than everybody else because he's a top magician. And
Yeah,
he
Mhm.
right,
knows how all the tricks are done already.
right.
Or he might see one that he can't figure out. Oh, God, I've been stuck by this other magician. I got to figure this out. So I don't go to a whole lot of concerts. Um, but if I really wanted to see somebody, oh God. Well,
I'll I'll tell you mine, who I was blown away with,
yeah.
and I went to the New York State Fair to see Sheila E. And it was on a
Oh, sure.
Sunday, and they said, "You know who else is going to be there?" And I didn't know, and they said, "Who?" They said, "The Roots."
Ah.
Man, if you've never seen The Roots,
Oh
that's
no, I rode on the tour bus with them when they were all getting high before the show. 'Cause there was a show. It was Macy, it was the Roots, and Eminem and Dr. Dre
Oh
okay.
wow.
in L.A. So backstage, and met everybody. And but on the way there, the guy who was managing Macy and I also owned this tour bus company.
Oh, nice.
So he went to go pick up the Roots from their hotel and take them to the concert venue, which is just like a half an hour away. He's like, "Hey, you want to come with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we pick them up in the bus, and then, I mean, like right away they light up, and the place is just completely filled with pot smoke by the time we get there. So funny.
Yeah, they're
Um,
incredible, man.
yeah.
If you ever see them perform, you'll never not want to see them perform again.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, they
Yeah.
were wonderful, and it's nice to see live music and hip hop combined.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
took a while because when I saw Public Enemy at the front row, they
Uh
were
huh.
horrible.
Uh huh.
I couldn't imagine. And I think when it changed was I remember on MTV, it was 91.
Uh huh.
LL Cool J had a live band behind him. And I think
Cool.
that changed everything. It,
I
Yeah.
it
met
made
I
it.
met him once too in an elevator in New York City. It was just the weirdest thing. Uh, Macy
Yeah.
and I were playing a show in New York, and I guess he was staying at the same hotel because the door opened up and there was LL. I was like, wow, that's LL.
So have your musical tastes changed drastically since now that you're a producer? Do you have more appreciation for a genre that you didn't have until you became a producer? Do you like country music? I can't imagine.
Yeah. Oh no, it's amazing. The players on country are just like top notch, and I like older country music. I really don't. I'm not really into the modern stuff,
Mhm.
but there's this one song that Snoop Dogg did with Willie Nelson called "Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die," and it sounds silly, but if you listen to the musicianship behind it, it's amazing. You know,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's not at the forefront of the mix. The vocals are, so it's just part of the background. But no, uh, uh, but to answer your question, like a lot of people ask me, what style do you produce? And my answer is good. Meaning, the style will depend on the artist, or if it's
Mhm.
something for film and TV, it depends on the emotional content of the scene that you're
Right.
scoring for,
Right.
because it's the music that tells you how to feel
Right.
um, in a movie. So, brain, no brain.
Do you take the
Uh,
approach of who's the Def Jam producer? Rick
Rick Rubin.
oh,
Rubin.
sure. Rick Rubin produced a song about it too. It's so funny you're mentioning all these people that I've run into, but it's like I said, it's a real small industry. Rick is very mellow. He stands in the back of the room. You'd think he was a street bum if you didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's extremely holistic kind of guy. Uh, He's not very hands-on in the studio, but then he's really quiet. But then when he speaks, it's like right on the money.
Mhm.
So he's thinking a lot.
I can see him as he takes the psychological approach that you talked about and builds with relationships, and I love the
Well,
stuff.
every producer has to do that, but he takes
Yeah.
almost a mystical approach. And look, he just came out with a book called Creativity.
Yeah, I have that.
And
Yeah, it's a great book.
It's a great
Yeah.
book, and it's not just on music; it's on creativity in all walks of life.
Mhm.
And as a producer, when you come from that perspective, instead of, well, let's write a song that'll make a lot of money,
Right.
you know, you have to be authentic in the music and everything you do, and then your audience picks up on that authenticity and will relate to you better.
Mhm.
And that's when you've got a loyal fan. A loyal fan isn't really a fan. It's a symbiotic relationship between artist and fan. That's how it is. Yeah.
Does anything today exist like the Wrecking Crew did? That really surprised me when I saw that documentary, where all the bands from the 60s through the 70s, especially the Beach Boys, the Wrecking Crew with Glenn Campbell and all those guys, they were jazz musicians that didn't like rock and roll and basically played all the instruments and all the hits that you heard all the way through the 70s or all the way up until the 80s. I feel, is there something like that still exists? Is there some form of that? Do you see that? Or
I don't. I might be ignorant to it, but no. But most acts are self-contained now.
Mhm.
And back in the day, there were writing rooms. There was the building called the Brill House in
Yeah.
New York City,
Yeah.
where they would have different rooms: songwriter, and so they could vibe off each other and bounce ideas around.
Tin Pan
But
Alley.
that's when like the artists never wrote their own songs, and it was actually the Beatles who were the first like pop acts to actually write their own songs, which is a good thing because they were great songwriters. But nowadays, maybe like there's a production crew called the Neptunes.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
They do
Pharrell.
very well. So
Are they still active as much as they are? I
as
mean, it
producers,
doesn't.
oh hell
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think of any others. It's not so much a thing right now.
Well, there's a lot of copyright infringement on Pharrell's. That I mean, more
Yeah,
than.
I didn't agree with the court's call in that case at all.
Hmm.
Because they were conflating production with the writing. And
Mm.
like I said, except for very specific kinds of music that are produced primarily based on sounds and beats and sound effects, and not necessarily rhythm instruments that have different chords and stuff like that.
Have you ever run into that? Have you ever
Oh
gotten
yeah,
caught up with that and had to?
yeah. There's a group called Shiny Toy Guns uh, that. Well, let me back up. When I had this publishing deal, I had a certain number of songs and recordings of them I had to turn every year.
Hmm.
And in order to maximize that, and also the more songs you have out there, the more seeds that are planted, the more likely it's going to get picked up and used commercially somehow. So I hired another producer to co-write and co-produce more material with me.
Hmm.
And the stuff that we made, it was really good. And one day, maybe a year or two after he's done working for me, I turn on the TV. It's late at night. I'm about to fall asleep. It's MTV. I'm about to fall asleep, and all of a sudden I hear this familiar song, and I'm like, "Yeah, I like this. That's my song." And
Whoa.
it was this song called "Girls Lay Disco." It was like, do, 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 we're gonna ride the race cars. Do, 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 we're the girls in disco. It was actually on a couple of commercials. That's where it made more money being licensed out to commercials than
That's
it
where the
did
money's
with
at.
sales. But this
Yeah.
group did moderately well. Well, I called them up and I'm like, listen, if you look at our contract, I own all that material.
Mhm.
You were hired gun. And I was like, I don't want to waste time with attorneys and all this, but I'll tell you, this is what I want. And I said, I want $220,000 and I want 3 percentage points on all future sales. And he came back and said, well, how about I give you back the money you paid me and I'll let you co-write one song with me in the future. So I sued them and we ended up settling. So yeah, I had to deal with that on the plaintiff side.
Mhm.
And also, Apple used a song of mine in one of their promotions for the iPhone without my permission. They got Macy's permission as a co-write, but not mine.
Oh,
And
okay.
and for that, for licensing, you do have to get permission from the artist because you're using their material, their voice, their songs, their productions, everything. Uh, so I had to get a lawyer involved, and then finally they paid me and also sent me a free laptop as a bonus, whatever.
Yeah,
Wow.
to make it right.
I
So,
said to the attorney, I can't give you a third of the laptop, but he's like, just keep it. You
tell
can't
me,
set it up.
tell me what you think of AI, where it's going, good, bad.
Currently, it all sounds like crap to me. It's really cheesy. The actual sound of the vocals is synthetic. I'm not into it at all. However, like any technology, it will get refined and it will become a useful tool for both
Yeah,
artists and non-artists. I think the biggest problem is that a lot of people who dream of being musicians think they are now because they can type in a prompt and have the music done for them. And
right.
I would I would think that the people who are highest or best qualified to come up with musical prompts are actual musicians because they know how music is broken down and can
Right.
really describe something. But it still sounds like crap right now. That'll get better.
But
Eventually, it'll get better over
what
time.
about these supercomputers that are creating music by taking the recipe of a Drake? Or I've heard that there are
Yeah, there's a
successful.
lot of copyright issues going on right now, and new laws that are being created uh, around all the AI music stuff. Yeah.
Is it scary to you?
No, no, because uh, I've got 30 plus years of experience. There's a certain seasoning that comes with that. And
Yeah.
coming in completely fresh and typing a prompt and the song comes out, and it's better than anything you could have ever dreamed of, but it's still not good. But you think it's like, I did this and it's mine and it's amazing because I could never dream of doing any music and now I can do full songs in a second, you know.
Well, I just think about the mumble rap and what was it? The what Cher uses in her music. What is that?
Autotune?
Yeah, auto tune. That kind of
Yeah.
synthetic crap. I'm still worried. I'm looking at humankind and what how the taste is dropping and how the appreciation for the art of things. Everything is so psychotic consumerism or psychotic capitalism, to coin a phrase that Gabe always uses, that I think real music is becoming like jazz. You have to be a connoisseur of it to really understand it. And I'm also looking at pop music going that way. Like, what happened to really good pop music? And in the '80s, I think '90s
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you
pop
what
music
changed.
sucked.
But you're not going to like the answer. What changed is you. All right.
Okay.
When we were kids, we had our music, and our parents thought it was awful. And the same happens with every generation that they have their own music. It's theirs. They like. It's a different style, and so we kind of age out unless we keep up with those styles and actually like them, which
I
I
would,
do. I do keep up very much so, and I really enjoy, like I say, kind of pushing the envelope of what's modern.
I would
into the
believe
future.
that if I didn't see so many songs being slowed down and sped up and sung over, because they are going back to our music to make good music. It's not really original. It's original in the way that it's
The way it's put together, yeah.
reappropriated and put and reassembled. But yeah, it's just and there's
Well,
another.
I take issue with the term real music.
Well, it's
All
not real
music is
music.
real music to somebody.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
even monophonic rhythmic farts would be
and
somebody would be like, "This is the best thing ever."
I look at punk music a lot differently than I did back
Uh-huh.
in the day. I mean, I have more a respect for it at this point.
We
Sure.
didn't have any real punk musicians at Shaker. Do you recall that, Joe? Mostly people were like either rock or R and
Every
B.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Todd Lane's brother or stepbrother, Bob Griffin. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I was thinking if there's a punker in Shaker, it was him.
Yeah, he had an
I
appreciation for it.
mean, I know he had a
I
punk look,
Yeah, he pretty much was the only one. Everyone had the more rock look, or
but I don't know if he played or not. But yeah, that's when you mentioned punk, he was the only person I could come up with in Shaker.
yeah,
mm.
yeah. I wonder what has become. Have you know of his whereabouts, or have you heard about it? Maybe when we talk to Todd Lane, we can, because that's
Yeah,
his stepbrother, I believe, if I'm
yeah,
correct.
yeah. It is. It is. It is. Yeah, no, I know Todd well from the days when he was playing in Haven and we would play shows together and hang out. I,
Who do you run into in LA? Who are you working with? Some of your former Shakerites or our former Shakerites in the business and the industry?
yeah, there are, but I haven't ran into anyone in a while. It's weird. Steve Smith, one of my best buddies, has not has has sent me one text ever since he had kids, which is probably like 2 decades ago.
Uh-oh.
And he lives 5 minutes from me. And every time I reach out, I'm like, "Come on, man, call me. What's up?" And he never does. And after like 20 years, I get this text saying, "Sorry about that, man." That's all it said.
Yeah. He didn't make the he couldn't make the reunion. That was too bad.
No, no,
Yeah,
no. It would have been great. But
yeah,
and he knew it. I knew what he meant when he said sorry about that. Sorry about the last 2 decades of no communication. Sorry
right.
about that, man.
Yeah,
Well, we'd love to have a reunion with the old bands, and we're hoping to have it with Haven. We're going to talk. We've got plans to talk to Todd about his new album that's coming out with New Haven. But definitely like to bring your groups back together.
yeah. Because discrepancy, right?
That was another one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
live.
me, Greg Young,
I have your
Rob
business.
Barrick on drums and vocals, and then
Yeah,
Ben London played bass on that one, I think.
yeah. I
Or
have
maybe
that
it was,
card.
I don't know, I forget.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. But overall, how did your experiences coming from Shaker contribute to your success? Is, is that
Well,
quantifiable?
no, I think about that a lot. Just being educated well in general just
Yeah,
leads to not just business success, but a more meaningful life.
yeah.
You're more in tune with things, and
Your
like you
cat
can see,
chimed
you
in.
can see later on in life,
Yeah.
the people who were not educated as well for whatever reason, maybe it's not their fault, but it manifests itself later on in life,
Yeah.
and we can see a lot of that going around now.
It's
Uh,
access. It's having access and to different. I don't mean to cut you off, but
no,
to different
please,
experiences. It seems like
yeah,
most places where people have access and want to be rock stars, and just think of how conservative Cleveland is. I mean, just in the city and how it
it's
moves.
also the rock and roll, the rock and roll capital of the world,
It is. It is
and
also, but I
with
don't
the
think
Rock Hall.
But do you think a lot of the parents would have said, "Oh yeah, become a rock star," or my parents, "Go to art school, go do
Well,
this
it,
and do
it, it
that."
depends on the parent. My folks were really supportive because of the whole vaudeville thing. And also, my dad had a philosophy: you might as well get behind what your kids want to do because they're going to do it anyway.
Right.
You know? So,
But they had to finance it too, so that's another thing.
well, they didn't have to. Some of them did.
Yeah.
I remember I wanted to make a record of discrepancy music. Oh, Doug Folger was in the group. He was the other guitar player. And uh, I had this dinner with everyone's parents and the band members to pitch putting in the money to make this record. All right, and for whatever reason, it didn't work for his folks. They were not into it. They just thought it was a big waste of time and money.
Mm.
And everyone has a different set of parents. My folks were really into it. Yeah, they invested in it heavily. But for whatever reason, I can say with no ego, there was some talent there. It wasn't like some pie in the sky dream,
Right. Right.
Hmm.
you know.
Are there any people, musicians that you thought would be working in the industry that aren't for some reason or not? Are there any surprises that, oh man, I would have bet that so and so would have been in the industry?
People from Shaker, well, I don't know what he's doing now. Maybe he's doing something, maybe he's not. Quentin Rubin
Yeah,
was
Quentin was in the industry. Yeah,
incredible player.
yeah. He still plays playing around in the Cleveland area and in Akron. He's doing a lot of Prince sets and stuff. He was with Albie Shore, and that's the only musician I
Wow.
know that he toured with. But we're going to have him on too. He agreed to come
Yeah,
on to the show.
I just remember he was such an amazing player. Uh,
I wonder about Kerwin
really,
Kane. I wonder where his whereabouts. He was the bass player at Shaker. Did you know Kerwin?
not well.
Okay.
You know who I thought maybe should have made it that hasn't yet or did was Todd Lane. Because out of everyone at Shaker, he had like at that time he had this like go-getter attitude. He was fearless. Somehow he was able to get backstage at every concert just by like talking to the roadies,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well,
that's the
didn't his dad
that's
own
the
a
thing you
radio
have to
station?
have.
Yeah, didn't his dad own a radio station, or was he an
His dad
executive?
was a radio personality.
Oh, okay,
I think it was more of a talk radio kind of thing than a musical thing.
okay.
Van Lane was his name, but I don't know exactly what he did on the radio, but I'm sure that was a heavy influence on Todd.
Hmm.
You know, but I can't think of anybody else right now. I I will say this, which people nobody knows this, but I'm
Okay,
actually a member
good.
of the Shaker
Exclusive.
alumni, a member of the Shaker Alumni Hall of Fame. If you
Oh.
go if
Wow.
you go look at the little plaque in the main hallway there of the Hall of Famers, my name's on it.
Okay.
Uh,
When did
and
you get inducted?
oh God, this is probably 15 years ago or something like
Okay.
that.
Oh, congrats.
And it's never done me anything except a couple years ago, I was taking a walk on a Sunday around Shaker during a visit, and I had to pee really bad. I was at the high school, and it's middle of the day, so it's not like you just find a tree. People are walking around and all this and everything. It's a Sunday, nice Sunday. So I knock on the door to get the janitor's attention, and he comes over. And I'm like, listen, I got to use the bathroom really bad. He's like, are you crazy? I don't know who you are. And the school's locked up. I said, listen, I used to go here. My name's Joe Solo. Here's my license. And if you look on that plaque right over there under the Hall of Fame, you'll see my name. And there's nobody else named Joe Solo around here. So he checks out the plaque. He looks at my license and lets me in.
Wow, that'll show him.
So
That'll show
being in
him.
the Hall of Fame has done some good for me.
Has his privileges. Yes.
Yeah.
I have one last question. One last question.
Sure.
So, with all the music that you wrote as a young person, did any of that music, the stems of it or the ideas of it, make it? Did you become a professional song, or did you use it later?
Yeah, sure. Lots of stuff. You can't do everything. It's just too much to do. But I've gone back, but also as you get more skilled and better at something over the years, new is what keeps you going.
Yeah.
New is what keeps you interested. So I don't go back too often, but there've been a handful of songs that I've done that. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you owe any of your former bandmates royalties because you did that? Because they co-wrote?
No, no. I haven't gone back and done any of the songs that the bands did. Only stuff that I wrote by myself.
Okay.
But
good.
we did have some good originals that would be fun to do. But it takes about 120 hours to make a broadcast quality song in the studio. So I don't really do songs like just for the hell of it, because it takes so much time and energy.
Can we get the band back together for our 45th reunion, 42nd and a half reunion? We want to have a battle of the bands at this next reunion.
Sure. I'll be there. You got to talk to the other guys.
Well, you got to help us. Oh, ending. Who should we bring on the show? And in doing that, you have the responsibility to help us bring that person or those people on the show. Who do you recommend?
Let's see. Boy, that's hard because there's so many wonderful people at Shaker who've done so many wonderful things. Lawrence Antoine has a really interesting professional history. He's in entertainment too. He used to be an executive at one of the top agencies in Beverly Hills, top entertainment agencies, and now he's working for, I think, Live Nation. But from what I understand, he's had an interesting path. And I think he would be a real good person to interview.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to hit you up offline about the film and TV, some film and TV stuff. So,
Sure. Got plenty of music for that.
Yeah.
So this is when our theme song kicks in, and hopefully it clears this time.
There we go. Well, that was another episode of the Shaker Heights Experiences May Vary with the one and only Joe Solo. You didn't know? Now you know. Thank you all for watching. Check us up on Spotify, Amazon Music, Podcast Index. And even if you just come around and, just kind of peruse, like and subscribe. We're trying to push 100 on our YouTube page. We're at 89 right now. But thank you, everybody who's tuned in. Check this out. And we'll see you next week. Next week, we have one of Shaker's own local Paul Bounds, Councilman Paul Bounds. Look forward to having Paul Bounds on, wrestler, metalhead, just an all-around good guy, went to Ludlow. So thank you. Thank you, Joe Solo. Great
My
catching
pleasure.
up.
Have a good time.
And here's a word from our sponsors.
I have to show you my Knockbox. It's a system that comes with 15 labeled folders in 66 categories that organizes every single part of your life in case of an emergency or death. And it's not just the labeled folders. It also comes with detailed instructions so you know exactly what information you need to put in there and what your next of kin needs to do with it. Click on through to the website so you can check out the deals this holiday season.
There you go. We gotta, we gotta pay the bills.
That's right.
All right.
Okay.
Until next time, have the rest of a great weekend. We'll see everybody, God willing, next Sunday. This is Shaker Heights. Experiences May Vary. Peace.
That's a hand solo, not a Joe solo, a hand solo.
Oh, I get it. All right. Thanks.